What's up, guys? Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. We are live here on YouTube. Every Thursday we go live, 4 o'clock Central Time. Appreciate all of you for tuning in to today's show. Got 160 people watching already. William Brock in the chat says, Rolly. Well, we got some news for you guys. Rolly's not in the building. We'll tell you who is in a second. Shout out your city. Let's go ahead and bring the guy in. Patrick Seatman, Chicagoan himself.
Let's go.
Hosts our Bulls channel. He is a Vikings fan. You know, nobody's perfect, but you're rocking the Bulls gear over there?
Yeah, I got some Bulls gear on. Decided to throw it on for the Bears
fans.
Hey,
watch party tonight, right?
Watch party tonight on our Bulls channel.
Yeah, if you want to go watch a Bulls watch party, go check that out tonight. And is it already scheduled?
It's already scheduled.
Oh, we can put that in the chat later. Throw the link in the chat. Bulls watch party. We'll get that in there before we sign off. Go check out Seeps over there. But Rolly has the day off, actually. Slacking Rolly. No one knows where he is, but nah, he's good. He's working tomorrow while Seeps and I have tomorrow off. So
I'm actually from, anybody who knows it, LaGrange Park, Illinois. If you guys know it, type it in the chat.
There you go. Seeps representing. Wasim in Irvine, California. We got Tim Griffin in Kewanee, Illinois. Andy in London. Josh says, love the show. Dallas, what's up, Josh? Lacora, the North Pole. That's always the inside joke. Mississippi in the house from Anthony. Michael in Georgia. William says, boo. Yeah, no Rolly, man. He's bailing on you guys. Cozzolino says, is in England. We got Jason in Buffalo. Donald in South Bend, Indiana. Louisville, Kentucky from Karen. What's up, Will? We got TJ in Aurora. Let's see. We got Taeyun in Seoul, Korea. What's up? International here. Big Ron in Iowa. D. Burns in San Jose, California. G. Willie says California barf emoji. Hey, listen, you don't have to go after where people live. Everybody lives where they want to live for the most part. Will's in Cincinnati. We got Andrew in Oklahoma. Scott is in SoCal. What's up, Scott? Lacora, South Elgin, Illinois. Always cracking jokes. I like it. Panama City, Florida is where Rudy's watching. We got Brian in Miami. Wasim in the chat. Wasim was watching Rolly in the Heat Report last night. What's up, Wasim? What's up, Wasim? All right, we're going to dive into some Jim Harbaugh stuff, and I got this as the pinned question, or poll question here in the chat, so go answer there as well. Should the Bears hire Jim Harbaugh to replace Matt Eberflus? Type H for hire, P for pass. Harbaugh and Michigan football are under NCAA investigation for sign stealing, in-person sign stealing. We've got a lot of news to get to in that regard, and it just made me wonder if he might just be like, you know what, I'm tired of the college football red tape you have to jump through. I might come back to the NFL, and if he does, I think the Bears could be an interesting fit. What do you guys think? The Notch says hire, so does football. Gabe is passing. We got Kevin hiring him, Stone. We got the footballer, Brian, Big Ron, all saying hire. Stone says hire. Williams says hire. Michael says yes, please. Capital H from Chi-Town. Hire him pretty, please. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Get Jim to Chicago. That's my dream. Just Jaden says hire. Tay says pass as well. So hopefully it happens, man. I think we have a long way to go to see this all play out. But I'll say this. If you want Harbaugh to come back to the NFL and to the Bears, you cheer for Michigan to win the national championship. I think if they win a natty, he's like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going back to the NFL. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Guys, if you want to spice up your game day experience like Thursday Night Football tonight, Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports game out there, is the place to go. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection, that's how it works. And you can win up to 25 times your money if you do a 6-player entry. I got a pick 3 going right now. I like Najee Harris less than his rushing yards projected there because Najee Harris stinks. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I know Tyson Bagent's in there, and I'll be honest, I made this DJ Moore more than receiving yards before I knew the O-line was decimated. Stay tuned for that news. But I still think they're going to get him more targets this week. And then Tua less. You can lock this in. The Eagles are going to stomp the Dolphins this week, and Tua is going to struggle in primetime in Philadelphia. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get a deposit match up to $100. Producer Seeps, Rolly, and I, we're balling out on Prize Picks, cashing in. Let's go get started with Prize Picks today. Okay, would you trade Chase Young for Chase Young right now? And I add the key note of right now because a couple of reasons. One, he's currently set to enter free agency next year. Now, Washington could extend him. They could franchise tag him. They could tag and trade him. And two, the Bears are 1-5. Do you want to trade assets right now to trade for him? So I'm curious what you guys think. Do you want Chase Young right now, or would you rather wait, take the chance, maybe try to get him or someone else in free agency? Mostly waits coming in. Nuke Man, Rolly's neckbeard says trade for him. Stone Palco says wait. Donald Wasim say wait. Scott says trade. Will and the Gabe say trade. We got, let's see, the footballer is saying trade. Matt St. John says wait. I want both of our first. Yeah, I don't think you would trade a first. I don't think there's any scenario where Ryan Poles is trading a first. But would he trade a second? Would he trade a third? I don't think Washington would take a third with how Chase Young's played this year. But they might take a second because they're possibly going to have to choose between Chase Young and Montez Sweat as both their free agents. So going to be interesting. Nuke Man says fire Matt Eberflus and also fire Luke Getsy. I'm down for that. Get them out of here. They stink. All right, let's get to the next question here. Pick a quarterback. Who's starting next year? I think there's a very high chance it's one of these three players. Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, or Drake May. I guess Bagent's the ultimate wild card if he goes on a Brock Purdy type of run here, but I don't know if Tyson Bagent's getting it done, Seeps.
So your prediction right now, if you had to put money in Vegas, you're going to the bookmakers. Who are you saying, prediction?
If they get the number one pick, I just don't see a scenario where they're not drafting Caleb Williams. I'm not even saying, if I'm running the team, this is purely what I think would happen. Yeah. I think they would draft Caleb Williams. Yeah. If they get the number two pick, it's a little different, I think. Do you trade Fields and go Drake May? Do you think May's worthy of just going all in on? I like Drake May. I think he's really good. And here's the problem, too, and we're going to talk about this later because there's some Justin Fields trade ideas out there. First of all, he's injured right now, so trading him in the next 12 days before the deadline is very hard. But if you were to trade him in the next 12 days, what if you don't get a top two pick? Then what do you do? What's your quarterback situation next year? So I'm seeing a lot of Justin Fields coming. I see a Michael Penix, a Bo Nix. You want to go to Bo Nix? Bo Nix or Fields? I'm keeping Fields. I'm not trading Justin Fields so I can draft Bo Nix. Now, if you want to keep Justin Fields and draft a QB on day two, do kind of the Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts thing where it's all right, Justin, we're going to keep building around you, but we are going to take a day two pick on a quarterback and turn up the heat a little bit and just give ourselves another QB to evaluate. I'd be okay with that too, but I just think if you get the number one pick, if I had to predict, I don't see them passing on Caleb Williams.
See, and also if you get the second overall pick, teams are going to be calling for Drake May pretty heavy. I mean, because he would be the no doubt number one if Williams obviously wasn't in this draft.
And especially if Shadur Sanders doesn't come out. I think there's a pretty big drop-off after Williams and May, at least somewhat notable. We'll see if J.J. McCarthy, Quinn Ewers, or Michael Penix can enter that stratosphere. But I do think right now it's Caleb Williams, little down, Drake May, then I think it's 2 or 3 guys down here.
Definitely.
But it's going to be very interesting to see it play out. Oh, Geezer with a $2 super chat, just trade for picks. I mean, look, you have to think of it this way, though. Again, there's so many things to consider. Number one, let's just say they go 2-15 this year. They win one game the rest of the way. If you're Ryan Poles, you may not get another chance to draft a quarterback, which he hasn't even drafted one yet. So, he might just be look, even if I think it's best for this team philosophically to build the roster for one more year, trade down, get a bunch of assets, and build the roster, he might be thinking, well, I may never get a chance to draft a quarterback if we're bad again next year. I might get fired. So you have to think of it that way, too. So it's just – I just can't imagine a GM, Seeps, getting the number one pick in back-to-back years and trading it both times.
Yeah.
Like, that's unheard of.
And plus, like, if you could tell, like, the new coach, like, if you do end up moving off of Eberflus, like, you could be like, dude, we're giving you Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Like,
figure it out.
Figure it out. Especially these offensive guys. Like, they would be Chicago.
Ben Johnson?
Ben Johnson would come here in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I would think so. Oh, man. What do you guys think? David says J.J. McCarthy. That's fun fact, Patrick Seatman, our producer, went to the same high school and is J.J. McCarthy. You were a senior when he was a freshman, right?
Yeah, I was a senior when he was a freshman. He went to Nazareth in the suburbs of Chicago. But, dude, I mean, he was a dog when he was 14. I'm always going to pound the table for J.J., really good dude. But maybe it's the thing, you draft him at, like, you trade back, draft him at, like, 15 or something. Like,
yeah,
put a little pressure on Fields, but
I do wonder if Michigan does not win the national championship, if he would go back and try to be the number 1 pick in the next draft. Like, a Shedeur McCarthy 2025 number 1 pick race would be pretty fun.
That would be fun.
That would be pretty fun. So, because this is such a deep QB class, because, look, like, I think McCarthy's probably a better prospect than, like, you know, the Bo Nixes of the world, but, like, there might be like 8 quarterbacks drafted in the first 2 days. So, like, I do wonder if a couple of them are just going to go back to school for another year.
Yeah, I mean, plus the guaranteed money is so different between, like, the first 15
Someone's falling. Like, I don't know if it'll be Michael Penix or if it'll be McCarthy or Quinn Ewers, but someone will probably fall farther than they think. And so I do wonder if someone does go back. Hit that like button. Let's cross 100 likes before we start today's show. We got Trace Rawls saying, why Harbaugh? Give me Ben Johnson, younger, years of play calling under his belt, innovative, plus turn the Lions around, no harm. I'm not against Ben Johnson. I would take Ben Johnson. We're just talking about Harbaugh today because there's a lot of news around him, and I do think he could consider coming back to the NFL. And let's be real, though. Like, you wouldn't take Jim Harbaugh. Like, if you want Ben Johnson over him, I'm not going to argue with you, but, like, there's very few opportunities where proven coaches become available.
Yeah.
Like, proven NFL winning coaches. He's 44-19 as an NFL coach. Like, I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl, but, like, he would instantly bring you credibility at the head coaching spot, which you have not had since Lovie Smith. So I think that's something that has to be considered. A couple more super chats, and then we'll dive into today's show. Twinquist, Justin Fields is a superstar on the right offense. Got to find a staff that can game plan around him. I don't even disagree. I'm just like, when I say these things, I'm looking at it from what I think the Bears will do. I'm conflicted on what I would do, to be honest. I see both sides of it, because if you do draft a quarterback, you reset the rookie contract. Fields is going into year 4. If you keep him, you got to make a quick decision if you're going to give him a second contract. So I could see both sides of it. I just think that unless Fields comes back from this injury and just plays unreal the rest of the season for a sustained amount of time, I think they will probably draft a QB if they get the number 1 pick. Trace Rawls, not to mention the current Michigan cheating investigation. See, to me, like, that's not stopping me from hiring Harbaugh. That's like, okay, that's college football, like, whatever. Like, obviously, like, if it's proven that, like, he sent people to games and they videoed or whatever, like, we don't know all the details. Like, it's not a great look, but, like, Belichick did it, and I don't think a single Patriots fan on the planet was like, yeah, we don't want Bill anymore. Like, yeah, like, obviously you wouldn't be able to do that if you're Jim Harbaugh, but I would still take him, man. Like, dude, the Bears head coaches since Lovie Smith have been a joke. You hired a CFL coach in Mark Trestman. That was a disaster. John Fox, who was basically retired and could not believe that he was going to get a third chance at a head coach. He sucked. Matt Nagy on paper made sense. I understood that one. It just didn't work out, and that happens sometimes. But that's like another reason almost where, like, I'm not against the coordinator route, but, like, again, if you can get a guy that's a proven winner in the NFL, why would you not consider that? Like, I just think you have to at least give that a consideration. Twinquist, again, embrace the tank, use every pick to bolster the trenches, get an OC that runs a simple run-first offense year 1. I mean, how about just get an OC who's good? Let's start there, regardless of scheme. Larry, I have Gill more than 4.5 punts. That might be the lock of the century. So, prize picks, you can take punters more or less than punts. Trenton Gill's going to be busy on Sunday. The only way he doesn't hit 4.5 punts is if the Bears are turning it over a launch, and they don't even get a chance to punt, which that is also possible. All right, let's dive into this. Lots of stuff to get into here on today's show. Jim Harbaugh to Chicago. Is it possible after this season? We will explore that. We're also going to get into the latest Bears trade rumors. We're also going to discuss today's injury report from Halas Hall, so we've got you covered on that. We'll take your questions, hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get those questions in. Mike Ditka's mustache. We'll get to your Super Chat here in a little bit, so stay tuned. And then there's an interesting Justin Fields trade idea that's been circulating from an NFL insider. All of that and more coming up here on Bears Now. Be sure to hit that like button, and let's dive in. Busy episode of Chicago Bears Now coming at you here on today's show. Could Jim Harbaugh be the next head coach of the Bears? We explain why I think it could be a possibility. Plus, we got the latest news and injury updates heading your way from Halas Hall, including a couple of not-so-encouraging injury updates on today's show, so stay tuned for that. And our sub-battle continues as the Bears take on the Raiders at Soldier Field on Sunday. At least got to beat the Raiders report off the field. Look, this matchup, I don't think the Raiders are a great team, but with how beat up the Bears are and with Justin Fields out, it's going to be tough to win on the field. So let's win off the field. If you want daily coverage here on the Chicago Bears, hit that subscribe button. It's 100% free. Let's dive into these Jim Harbaugh rumors. My name is Harrison Graham. Could Jim Harbaugh be headed to the Bears after this season? Yes, I'm aware the Bears currently have a head coach. Yes, I'm aware Harbaugh is the head coach at Michigan, but let's just look ahead a little bit and catch you guys up on what's happening right now. So Jim Harbaugh and Michigan football are under investigation for sign stealing, in-person sign stealing, I might add. For apparently the accusation is they sent people to future opponents' games to try and pick up on their signals, which is illegal. You cannot do that. Now, you can try and pick up on signs during the game when you're playing that opponent. That's a completely fair game. You can look across the field and try and pick that off, but you cannot send people to opponents' games on your schedule and try to pick up on that, a competitive advantage. Of course, Harbaugh already served a 3-game suspension for an NCAA recruiting violation to start this year, and I do just wonder if he's just tired of the NCAA, the red tape, the recruiting you have to do, and if he could consider returning to the National Football League, and for our sake, maybe the Chicago Bears. Now, let's get to this statement from the Big Ten Conference on what's going on with Michigan. They say, late Wednesday afternoon, the Big Ten and the University of Michigan were notified by the NCAA that the NCAA was investigating allegations of sign stealing by the University of Michigan football program. Now, my first reaction when I saw that Harbaugh and Michigan were potentially in trouble again was, dude, just come back to the NFL, man. Bears need a head coach. Matt Eberflus, not the answer. I think we're all in agreement on that at that point. Whether you think Harbaugh is your top guy or not, or whether he is your top guy or not, he would bring you instant credibility in terms of a guy who can win in the NFL. We'll outline that later on, but get Harbaugh to Chicago. I would love to see this happen. Now, Ross Dellinger, who's been reporting this story for Yahoo Sports, said that sign stealing is not technically prohibited and has a long and colorful history as part of the game. Scouting opponents in person has been prohibited since 1994. Whether the NCAA believes Michigan was using staffers or others who may be loyal to the program is unknown. So too is whether information was detailed via video or some other means, or if head coach Jim Harbaugh is involved. Again, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm just tired of this stuff. I don't know if he knows everything that was going on. Maybe he knows some. Maybe he doesn't. And look, I'm not condoning sending staffers to Ohio State games, for examples, and trying to find a competitive edge if it's against the rules. I'm not condoning that, but there is a lot of garbage you have to deal with if you're a college football head coach compared to an NFL head coach. Number one, you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds and with parents who are always in your ear. It's just a mess, and all the NIL stuff is confusing now. The NFL, it's grown men professionals, and you don't have to recruit. It's if you're a college football head coach, it's 2 full-time jobs. NFL, you're just coaching. I'm not saying it's an easy job, but it is way less taxing than being a university head coach, especially at a school of the caliber of Michigan. So I do wonder if Jim Harbaugh's you know what? Screw this. I'm finishing this year out. I'm going to try and win a national championship, which is what I came back to Michigan to do, to win a natty at my alma mater. Then I'm going to go try and do it for the Bears as well, where I play quarterback, and save that franchise too. Like, if that's my message to you, Jim Harbaugh, like, finish this year out, try to get a natty, maybe it gets vacated, who knows, and then leave Michigan, because it just seems like it's one thing after the other at this point. And if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, this is just exhausting. And on top of all that, too, this year's his best chance to win a natty. Like, it kind of feels like it's now or never with a lot of these guys expected to go pro after this season. So, hey, maybe the Bears could be the beneficiary and perhaps pick up Harbaugh as their next head coach. What say you? If he's available, should the Bears hire Jim Harbaugh? What would you do? Type H for hire or P for pass. I would hire him in a heartbeat. I know he's a funky guy and he's a weirdo and this and that, but the resume speaks for itself. This is his head coaching tenure in his career. University of San Diego, virtually never lost. Stanford, which was the most dead program at the time among Power 5 institutions, turned them around and won a BCS Bowl with them. Goes to the 49ers, takes them to multiple NFC championship games and a Super Bowl, almost wins a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. Then he goes to the University of Michigan and, early on lost some big games there, but the last 2 years they've been the face of the Big Ten. Like, he is a winner. And by the way, he's got connections to the Bears because he was their starting quarterback for about half a decade. Went 35-30. Wasn't, awesome by any means here, but he knows the Bears organization. Like, he knows this region of the country, which he's been near with Michigan for several years now. Like, Jim Harbaugh would be a really good fit, and it would give the Bears credibility, and it just makes sense, man. Like, my message to the Bears now, I delivered Jim Harbaugh one, I'm delivering one to you, Kevin Warren, George McCaskey, Ryan Poles, whoever. Matt Eberflus is clearly not the guy. I don't care if you fire him midseason at this point, after the season, whatever, but he cannot be your coach in 2024. Bring a proven winner back to Chicago. That is what Jim Harbaugh is. And I would trust him to hire a good staff too. He might bring his DC with him, which, by the way, the defensive numbers they're putting up this season are historic at the college level. He's got connections to guys like Greg Roman. If you want to keep a guy like Justin Fields, that's an interesting name to keep in mind. Like, Jim Harbaugh, the Harbaughs in general, are very well connected. Like, he would bring a credible staff and not a bunch of first-timers who have never done the job before in terms of calling offense, calling defense, etc. Like, you get Jim Harbaugh, not only are you getting a proven winner at head coach, you're probably getting some proven coordinators as well, which is something Matt Eberflus was not able to do when he got this job. Now, who is your top candidate to replace Matt Eberflus? Maybe you don't want Harbaugh as your top guy. That's cool. I would say this, though, even if he's not your top guy, you can't tell me it would be a disappointment if you got him. Like, come on. Like, if Harbaugh's who you get, like, you got to be fired up about that. But maybe you want Ben Johnson. Maybe you want somebody else. Let me know. And if you want Jim Harbaugh, drop his name down in the comments. Now, speaking of great candidates, great options, Prize Picks is absolutely fantastic. It is the best game in the business when it comes to daily fantasy sports. Here's how it works. You pick 2 to 6 players, any sport, by the way. It's college football, NFL, Major League Baseball playoffs, NBA, whatever it is, 2 to 6 players on any given entry, and if they will go for more or less than their Prize Picks projections. I got a 3-player entry for this weekend for the NFL. Najee Harris has been a stiff this year. Give me the less on his rushing yards. He's been splitting carries as it is. DJ Moore, I'm going to take the more. I'm a little hesitant all of a sudden with the offensive line injuries, which we're about to discuss, so stay tuned. And then I'm going less on Tua passing yards. I think Philadelphia has a get-right game and challenges Tua in that Dolphins offense. Pick 3 entry, win 5 times your money. Let's go. You can win up to 25 times your money if you do a 6-player entry. Get started today at prizepicks.com/CLNS. When you sign up, you can get up to a $100 deposit match if you use that code CLNS, so go ahead and do so. And at Prize Picks, you're not competing against other players. You're not going up against sharks, pros. It's just you versus the stat projections. So get started today, prizepicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS. That link and promo code in the description and comments of this video. All right, let's get to the injury news portion of this show, and it's not great. Darnell Wright, dealing with an injury, did not practice on Thursday as he's dealing with a shoulder problem. He was limited yesterday, DNP today. That's trending in the wrong direction. And I'm very concerned for Tyson Bagent this weekend because this might be your starting offensive line this week. Braxton Jones is still on IR. He's not playing this week. Larry Borum's going to be your left tackle. I'm guessing that Cody Whitehair is going to shift back to guard and Lucas Patrick will start at center. And if he does play guard, I think Tevin probably flips back to right. Now, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't shuffle all these parts just to get Cody Whitehair back at left guard. Either play him at right guard or, quite frankly, they should start Ja'Tyre Carter. But I think they're going to go with this. And then Aviante Collins would have to start at right tackle if Darnell Wright can't play. And this could be a disaster, man. I mean, it could be an absolute disaster. Max Crosby is arguably the best pass rusher in the league right now. And Tyson Bagent, look, the kid's confident. I get that. But, like, if the pieces around you aren't working, you're in trouble, man, against any team, much less a Raiders team that's actually been playing good defense and Max Crosby, who's been terrific off the edge. And he never comes out of the game. And if you're with two backup tackles, he's going to line up on the left. He's going to line up on the right, and he's going to find the mismatch, and the Bears are going to be in trouble. And I don't trust Luke Getsy to work around that, if I'm being completely honest. Other players who DNP today, Justin Fields, he's not going to play this week. I think that's pretty much confirmed. Roschon Johnson, still in the concussion protocol, not great. Mercedes Lewis, he just takes his veteran rest day every Thursday, so that's not an issue. We mentioned Darnell Wright. Nate Davis, he's also going to be out on the offensive line. He's dealing with a high ankle sprain. Dan Feeney was downgraded to DNP today, so that gives you one less option on the interior there. Eddie Jackson did not practice. Terrell Smith has mono right now. I mean, the O-line in particular is decimated, man. It's a tough go right now. I mean, Tevin Jenkins might be your only true healthy starter unless you want to count Lucas Patrick and or Cody Whitehair, but those guys are not playing at a high level. Guys who were full participants today, Travis Homer. I actually think he'll get some snaps at running back this week because Deontay Foreman's really bad in pass protection, so Homer may have to play some. Yannick Ngakoue, after being limited yesterday, he was full go today, so that's good. And Doug Kramer, who's still on IR but practicing full, I'd give him a look at center, honestly. Whitehair and Patrick stinks, so why not give the 6th-round pick from last year a look? But we'll see if that ends up coming to fruition. So who you got in this game on Sunday? Type LV for the Raiders or CHI for the Bears. I should mention as well, Jimmy Garoppolo is officially ruled out for Las Vegas, so it's either going to be Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell against Tyson Bagent. I mean, throw out the record books, folks. This could be interesting, but I still got to lean Raiders, man, with how many injuries the Bears have and with Bagent making his first start. But let me know, LV for the Raiders, CHI for the Bears. All right, that's going to do it for our Bears news and rumor segment. Jim Harbaugh, leave Michigan. I'm telling you, man, this is the time to leave. Hit that subscribe button. We got you covered with daily videos for 100% free here on Chicago Bears Now. All right. What do you guys think? CHI for the Bears, LV for the Raiders. Come on. Lots of Las Vegas is coming in. Larry, Jeep, the Gabe, Scott, Orhea is going Chicago. So is Israel. We got Wasim going with the Raiders, Jay Moore. I mean, I'll be honest too, guys. It sucks to hear this, but especially with Fields not playing, sure, I want to watch Bagent and evaluate him too, but you're kind of at the point anyway where it might be better to lose. And I can't believe we're saying that in the middle of October again, but that's just where you're at, man. You got to be honest about these things.
Yeah, I mean, because what is it's going to hurt your draft pick a little bit. I mean, it would feel good. The vibes would be high.
Yeah, and look, you got the Carolina pick, so you don't have to tank. I'm not saying you should go out and try to win. I obviously, but
Carolina's doing that for you.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I'm just almost in this world where it's if you do get the top 2 picks, you have so many options.
So many options.
You have even if you do draft Caleb Williams, you can still trade down from 2 and get a lot of picks there. So, see what happens. Couple soups here. Mike Ditka's mustache. I love it. Appreciate the 5. At this point, you have to draft the QB regardless of how Fields plays. Yeah, again, you don't have to, but I understand. That's kind of my thinking too. Again, I'm just putting myself in Ryan Pohl's headspace. I just can't imagine him passing on another QB number 1 overall, especially, I know he didn't play good last week, but Caleb Williams is incredibly highly regarded. Incredibly. I don't know, Seeps, is he the highest graded QB prospect since at least Burrow? And I think some would have him higher than Burrow.
Even since, like, Luck.
Yeah,
like,
some have compared him, like, since Luck, he's, like, the highest graded prospect.
I mean, and it's also, like, I'm telling you, a coach is going to be wanting to come in here and be like, I get Caleb Williams on a rookie deal for the next 4 years. Like, let me take advantage.
And I still think, too, because there's this whole idea, like, what if Caleb doesn't want to come here? It's like, dude, have you seen how cocky that guy is? Like, you don't think he would embrace the challenge of being the guy who turned the Bears around?
Because the praise would be.
Oh, my God. That's what was so like, for Fields, I was like, you could be the guy. And I still think he had enough, like, I still think he has enough ability to be that. I just don't think, like, the timing just has not lined up because the last regime drafted him. Then they fired that regime, which they probably should have never let that regime stay on that year. And then the new regime just completely tore it down, which made sense, but, like, it hung Fields out to dry last year. And then this year, you know, he's doing some good things. It's up and down. He's kind of a train wreck, and then he gets hurt. So it's like it just hasn't, like, the stars have not aligned for Fields, unfortunately. Like, it just hasn't lined up. But that's the appeal of drafting a new quarterback is, okay, we're focused. You're the guy. We have 5 years of control. We've started to revamp this roster. We'll continue to do that over the next couple years. And then by 2025, like, you could really take off. Now, I don't want to wait 2 years, but we already know this year's a loss, so who knows? And I think you made a good point too, Seeps. Like, if you get a guy like Harbaugh, you might be a playoff team next year.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Harbaugh would instill a culture immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
It's going to be interesting. Wasim, he says, the Minnesota game really hurt Fields. It proved his inconsistency. Yeah, he's been inconsistent, man, regardless of what's been around him. I said Harbaugh, but I'd rather have Ben Johnson. The Cowboys will be looking for a new coach next year because McCarthy can't coach. They'll swing big. See, there is, to me, living in Dallas and keeping an eye on that Cowboys situation, just knowing how they operate, there is no way Jerry Jones would hire Jim Harbaugh because Jim Harbaugh is a control freak and Jerry Jones runs the show. He will not hire Harbaugh. That would actually shock me.
Yeah.
Like, he wants a coach he can control.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, even Bears or Cowboys job, what job is more appealing? 100% the Bears because you're playing with house money and you got so much ammunition.
I will say this, too. Like, now, I know Kevin Warren's in the fold, but, like, I mean, I don't know if Harbaugh is a guy that the McCaskies want to hire. But, like, if Warren is truly in control, then you have to let him do his job. So, / Ryan Poles. Sangray Kim, Bajent quote yesterday, the offense is not that different than my college offense. He's running D2 offense FML.
That's hilarious.
You're probably taking that a little too literally, but I'll say this.
That's
multiple film guys that I watch and study this stuff have said multiple times, this is not an NFL caliber offense. So take that for what you will. That's a good super chat, Sangray. I like that. Rayo to Richardson, I would trade down the picks and get some prime defensive players and sign offensive talent in free agency. Yeah, I got to look at the free agency crop on both sides of the ball. But, yeah, I mean, look, like, the appeal of, like, not drafting a QB is you could get a combination of, like, Olu, Marvin Harrison. You could even get wild and get, like, Brock Bowers, who's like an extra offensive lineman anyway. Plus, he's unreal as a pass-catching tight end. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. That's why, like, if you are on Team Tank, you got a ton of options if you get 2 of the top 3 or 4 picks. Trace Rawls, even though the sample is short, Bajent was able to process the defense and go through his progressions much better than Fields and releases fast. Now, I think we have to understand a few things here, Trace. Yes, Bajent does a good job of getting rid of the ball quickly. That does not mean he's going through multiple progressions, though. Like the first play of the game, for example, they bring Velus, when he checks in, they bring Velus in motion out to the flat. He didn't read the field. He just went straight to Velus, which, hey, that's fine. That was like a 7-yard play. Like, there are pros to getting the ball out quickly like that and taking those. But the cons of that is, are you missing out on other opportunities down the field, right? Like, when you're not getting to that second, third progression of like, oh, man, the skinny post on the backside might have been open. I'm not even saying Fields is great at that stuff because that's been an area where he's been very inconsistent. But just because you get the ball out very fast does not mean, A, that you're reading through multiple progressions very quickly, and B, that you're maximizing plays. Like, it does not necessarily mean that. Aaron Wolf, when Justin got here, I thought it was going to the Field of Dreams, but instead it turned into Children of the Corn. Yeah, just looking back on it, it's like, look, they could not keep Nagy in pace. But, like, why even let them draft a QB in the first place? Like, everyone knew they were getting fired unless they had a magical season that year. So why not? They should have fired them after 2020, and then if the new regime wanted to draft Fields, then you get everybody aligned. But instead, by Fields' second season, after a wasted rookie year, you got a new regime that may or may not fully believe in him because they didn't draft him. So, just a mess. Trace, not saying Bagent is better than Fields, but the mental game is just different. Yeah, look, they're different style quarterbacks, right? Like, I do think Bagent, probably can identify certain things that he likes matchup-wise pre-snap and just make those decisions. But you know what's going to happen, right? Like, I predicted this earlier in the week, Seeps. Bagent's going to, they're going to employ a very quick passing attack because the O-line's decimated, and I think that's something Bagent does well. But then what's going to happen is Patrick Graham, the Raiders' defensive coordinator, he's going to adjust, whether that's in the second quarter, halftime, whatever. He's going to start pressing, and then one of those quick throws is going to get jumped.
Yep.
That's what's going to happen. So, like, you have to be a threat to throw the ball downfield, which Bagent made a couple of those. The one to DJ Moore over the middle was nice. It was kind of a hospital ball, but he at least got it down there. So that's up to Luke Getsy to figure that out, man. Like, you can't just throw a bunch of dink and dunks because eventually teams are just going to sit on those and force you to throw over the top, and we'll see if he's able to do that. Clarence Anderson, we need new owners. Maybe that'll help us. It's a look-alike number 1 and number 2 pick. Yeah, I mean, that's what you have right now. Now there's about 4 or 5 other one-win teams, so it's definitely not set in stone that you're going to get the top 2 picks, but it's very possible. It is very, very possible. All right, guys, we'll get to a formal mailbag coming up in 10 or 15 minutes. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat, but we got some trade rumors to dive into, so that's where we're going to go next here on today's show. My name is Harrison Graham. You are watching Bears Now by Chat Sports. We're going to dive into the latest trade rumors as the NFL trade deadline is just about a week and a half away. Chase Young, he's been a name mentioned a lot really since the offseason, and recent betting odds have come out that the Chicago Bears are the favorites to land Young in terms of his next team odds here. Plus 200 there. The Lions sitting there at plus 300. Then you got the Niners, Eagles, Ravens, and then all the way down to the Dolphins at plus 2,000. But plus 200, I mean, 2-to-1 odds, that's pretty significant. Now, keep one thing in mind. Chase Young is currently set to be a free agent next year. So these betting odds are not necessarily trade odds. Like, this could be in the offseason. This could be 2 years from now. Who knows? It's just next team odds. So, take that with a grain of salt. But I do think the connections are there. Obviously, the Justin Fields connection that's been talked about before with Chase Young, the need of a pass rusher, geographically, like there have been connections in the past with Chase Young, and obviously Washington has to decide to keep him or Montez Sweat most likely. So I could see a scenario where the Bears are able to get him. Whether it's a trade right now, I'm not so sure. More to discuss on this in just a moment, but help us out. We're trying to get to 78,000 subscribers here on Chicago Bears Now. Trade rumors are heating up with the deadline just upon us. If they make a trade, we're going to go live. So hit that sub button. Let's get to 78,000 subscribers ASAP. We're at 77,164, 836 away. Sub for Bears dubs, even though they're not getting many dubs recently. Help us out here on this channel. You look at Chase Young, he's kind of back. Like, after a couple of injury-riddled seasons this year, he's got 3 sacks. He's got 31 pressures, which is a ton in 5 games. 7 quarterback hits as well. Like, he looks back. He looks back. He had a couple nice pressures against the Bears a couple weeks ago in that game. He looks healthy. He looks motivated to get a contract. And by the way, I still can't believe Washington declined his 5th year to let him be a free agent next year. I mean, that is just insane to me. But they did, which is why these rumors are heating up even more. And obviously for Chicago, I mean, a young stud edge rusher is desperately needed. I like Yannick Ngakoue, but I think we've seen this year, like, when he's your top rusher by a mile, he's limited. Like, he needs other guys around him to be effective at a high level. Look at the rest of this group. Like, who stands out to you? Nobody. Like, Javon Dexter on the interior has done some decent things as a rookie, but all in all, it's been a rough go for this front four. And look, when it comes to Chase Young, like right now, here's the dilemma. If you're Ryan Poles, you're not contending this year. So to trade assets when you're not contending this year, which you did last year for Chase Young and it did, or Chase Claypool, ironically, that didn't work out. Would you do it again, even though you do need a young and proven pass rusher, which Chase Young is? Do you do that now? Do you trade a high pick? I wouldn't trade one of my first, but would you even trade a second? Or do you hope he hits free agency or just in general operate like, hey, like, we like the player, but we just can't make that move right now with where we're at? I think you probably have to operate that way. As much as I would like Chase Young, like, I might gamble and see if he hits free agency, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. But you're 1-5, man. Like, are you trading a day 2 pick, a day 2 and a day 3 pick for Chase Young right now? Like, that feels risky when obviously you're not making a playoff push this year. What say you, though? Maybe you disagree. Maybe you want the Bears to make a move right now. Would you trade for Chase Young before the NFL trade deadline? Type T for trade or W for wait. I think I'm waiting until the offseason to reevaluate on that front, but that's just me. Pin comment on today's show, T for trade or W for wait. Keeping this rolling with the latest Bears trade rumors, could Darnell Mooney land with the LA Chargers? CBS Sports, a couple of trade ideas they propose. We'll get to the second one here in a little bit, including this one where Mooney lands in LA. Pretty straightforward trade, 2024 fourth-round pick coming to Chicago. The Chargers would get Darnell Mooney, who have had some receiver issues with Mike Williams going down. Keenan Allen's been good, but they haven't quite gotten Quentin Johnston going, so getting a guy like Mooney who could take the top off could make sense for that team. Here's Cody Benjamin's reasoning on this idea. Mooney is just 2 years removed from a 1,000-yard campaign as the Bears' top wideout, but his role has been greatly reduced since DJ Moore's arrival, and the ailing Bears are still looking to offset the value they lost in the Chase Claypool trade. Now, keep this in mind, too. The Bears play the Chargers 2 days before the NFL trade deadline, so if the LA Chargers are serious about adding a receiver, they will get a front row seat, assuming Mooney is still with the Bears and playing in that game, to watch him play. And I know it's been a bit of a struggle for Mooney the last season and a half, but he still can run routes. He still can separate. He's still, for my money, one of the best double move route runners in the NFL. I'll never forget him embarrassing Jalen Ramsey as a rookie in this league, and Nick Foles threw the ball into the stands. It wasn't even close. Just goes to show the QB play here has just been something over the years. But Darnell Mooney can play, which is kind of like, I'm like, fourth. Like, I know he hasn't been great and that productive, but I'd almost rather just keep him. We'll talk more about Mooney in a sec. But I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor on today's show. That is Factor. America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit is Factor, as they can help you fuel up with fast, chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your doorstep. If you're too busy to cook this fall but want to make sure you're eating well, with Factor, skip the extra trip to the grocery step and the chopping, the prepping, the cleaning up you have to do as well, and get the flavor and nutritional quality that you need. Factor's fresh and never frozen meals are ready to go in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy it and then get back to crushing your goals. What I like about Factor is delicious meals, also calorie conscious as well. Most of their servings are 550 calories or less. I love the loaded bacon shredded chicken. That's one of my favorite ones. Go check out Factor today. It's factormeals.com/BearsChat50. Use code BearsChat50 to get 50% off. That's code BearsChat50 at factormeals.com/BearsChat50 to get 50% off. Meals delivered straight to your doorstep. That link and promo code are in the comments and description of this video. You look at Darnell Mooney's career stats here, as this is his 4th season. It's just been kind of up and down, right? And I do think a lot of that has been he's dealt with inconsistent QB play and with different offenses, different play callers who haven't been able to maximize him. I still think he can be a good number 2 wide receiver in this league. And I think that's why, if you ask me, I think I would probably keep Darnell Mooney. Like, I think I would keep him in Chicago. Is a 4th-round pick enough to dump him? Like, if a team offers me a 3rd, I might consider it. But for a 4th, like, you might be able to keep him at a relatively low price due to the low production recently and due to the fact that he did have a pretty major injury last year, so you might be able to keep him for like $10 million a year, which I'd rather do that than just get a 4th-round pick. So I think if it's me, I'm keeping Darnell Mooney. But what say you? CBS Sports trade idea. Would you do this trade? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Mooney for a 4th. I think I'd probably rather keep him if I'm being completely honest. All right, let's talk about the name that I think is going to get the most traction over the next 10 days or so. Jaylon Johnson to Buffalo. That is the idea from CBS Sports. And it's an interesting idea. Not only do you get a 2nd-round pick from Buffalo, you also get Kaiir Elam, who was a 1st-round pick a year ago. We'll talk about him here in just a second. But I think for the Bears, the name that's going to get discussed the most, and already has been discussed quite a bit, and Jaylon Johnson even acknowledged the possibility, is Jaylon Johnson getting traded before the trade deadline, because he's probably the Bears' strongest asset right now. He plays a premium position in corner, and contract negotiations, at least publicly, don't seem to have gained a lot of traction. Now, Jaylon Johnson says he wants to be here. I'm on the record saying I want to keep him here. He hasn't been a guy that takes the football away a ton, but he just does not give up that many completions. I mean, you look at his coverage stats this year, he's given up less than 90 yards in 4 games. He did miss a couple of games, and he has had some minor injury concerns in his career. QB rating when targeted, 68. He's got a pass breakup. He has not given up a touchdown. Like, he's been borderline lockdown. I would not trade this guy. And, people are like, well, you can get a 2nd. You can do this, you can do that. You get a 2nd-round pick, you're hoping to draft a player of Jaylon Johnson's caliber. You see how that works? Like, you already have him. He's 24 years old. If he was 30, I'd feel differently. He's 24. He was 21 when he entered this league. You sign him to a 3-year extension, he's only 27, 28 when that deal is up. Like, there is no reason to not keep this guy. Like, yes, even if you're saying we're selling, we're rebuilding, you can rebuild with Jaylon Johnson. In fact, you should rebuild with Jaylon Johnson. You need good players, and Kaiir Elam has struggled early on here. Now, he came into the NFL with some pedigree, went to the University of Florida, has decent size there, 6'1", 190. He's a little slim, but he's got long arms. 1st-round pick last year. Did have 2 interceptions as a rookie, but the coverage stats and grades were below average per PFF. And he's only played in 2 games this year, and that's with Tre'Davious White suffering a season-ending injury, which that's another reason why they could want a guy like Jaylon Johnson. I just look at this thing, man, and I'm like, bring Jaylon back. Let Tyreek Stevenson and Kyler Gordon grow. Terrell Smith, I think, has good potential as a player as well. Like, you don't have to trade guys just because they're good assets. Like, I understood when you traded Khalil Mack last year. He was on the wrong side of 30. Jaylon Johnson's 24, man. Just keep the guy. Now, if a team offers you a 1st, I might feel differently. That might change my mind. But a 2nd, unless you're super high on Kaiir Elam, if you're Ryan Poles, who has not shown it in the NFL, I'm not making this move. What say you? Who wins this trade? Type CHI for the Bears, BUF for the Bills. I think the Bills win it because they get a premium corner for a team that's trying to make a run at a Super Bowl, and the Bears get a completely unproven asset and a 2nd-round pick, which would lead to an unproven asset because it's not like Ryan Poles has just lit it up in the draft so far. It's been very hit and miss. So I'm keeping Jaylon. Let me know what you guys think, though, on who would win that trade. And be sure to subscribe to the channel. If the Bears make a trade, we're going to go live. We'll probably be live for trade deadline day anyway, so buckle up for that. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's show. We'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, what do we got? It's 4:50 right now. You mean 6:15? 5:50. What time's the game? Yeah, 5:30 is fine. Yeah. All right. Yeah, just tell them we'll be out by 5:30. Ron Winarski says keep. Everybody's saying keep. I'll actually be upset if they trade him.
I thought you made a good point. It's like, if you are going to start this rebuild,
which you kind of already have. Well, you definitely have when you traded Roschon, and which, by the way, like the logic when they traded Roschon was, well, you got Tremaine Edmonds then you got a 2nd, and then you signed Tremaine Edmonds for a little less. Yeah. Tremaine Edmonds is not in Roschon's stratosphere.
No.
And that's nothing against Edmonds, but he's been underwhelming so far. TJ Edwards has been better for a third of the cost.
Yep.
Like, you watched the game last week. Edwards was
pretty solid.
all over the place. Like, Edmonds got that pick, but it was created by Edwards on the blitz.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Jaylon Johnson. I mean, you just lose a guy like that. Like, if you get a second-round pick, it's a whole, like, talk where it's like, oh, are you going to get a guy in the second round who's up to Jaylon Johnson's level? No.
Yeah, regardless of position, too. Like, sure, like, you can say, well, we feel okay about corner, like Tyreek. Terrell Smith is a guy we like, too. But, like, you still need good players to build with. Like, who on this roster? I'll ask you guys this. Seeps as well. Feel free to chime in. Who on this roster do you feel good about 3 years from now still being players contributing on this team? DJ Moore, Jaylon Johnson, Darnell Wright. Those are like the three guys.
Cole Kmet, maybe.
Cole Kmet, I thought, yeah, Kmet too. He just signed a 4-year extension. He's solid. But, like, you don't have many of those. Like, you need good – I'm not even saying Jaylon Johnson's blue chip, but you need blue chip players, and then you need really good players.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the 49ers. Jaylon Johnson would be like their 13th best player.
Yeah.
And here, he's like your second best. You can't lose that guy.
No.
Like, you can't trade him.
For a first, though, that's when it
Look,
gets
if it's a first, that changes the conversation. Because then you have 3 first-round picks. Like, that's something I'm open to.
Yeah.
But you drafted him in the middle of the second, and I would say he's lived up to that and then some.
Yeah.
He's a CB1. Now, he's not a, like, top 5 corner CB1. He's like, you know what I would compare him to? When Allen Robinson was at his peak in Chicago. He was a number 1 receiver. He was not a Tyreek Hill or a DeAndre Hopkins level 1, but he was a 1. That's kind of what Jaylon Johnson is. Like, he's a 1B. Like, he would be a number 1 corner for at least a third of the league, maybe half.
And plus, I mean, if you kind of compare it to Philly, like Darius Slay, Bradbury, no, they're not like true ones. Maybe Slay is a little more. But if you would pair Jaylon Johnson up with another young dude in the secondary, I mean.
Well, dude, and it'd be one thing if, like, Tyreek Stevenson as a rookie was just lighting it up right now. But, like, he's been up and down. Like, you can't ask him to be a number 1 corner right now. No. Like, just keep Jaylon Johnson, man. Pay him 12 to fit, like, you know, give him 3 years and $42 million. Something like that. I'll be upset if they trade him and it's for a second or less. Like, I really will. All right, let's get to your mailbag questions. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your questions on the show. I don't know if we have enough lined up here, Seeps, but hashtag Bears or Super Chat. And we'll dive into those questions, and then we'll wrap things up with a Justin Fields trade idea that's been circulating here in just a little bit. We're going to dive into your mailbag questions in a second. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get on the show. My name is Harrison Graham. You are watching Bears Now. But I wanted to hit this first. Bill Belichick, who very well could be on the hot seat in New England. In fact, a report came out on Thursday that from Albert Breer that there's been discussions behind the scenes of potential exit strategies from Robert Kraft to move on from Belichick. We'll see what happens. So betting odds are already out, and Bears fans are asking me, so let's talk about it. If Belichick gets fired from New England, the Commanders are the favorites to hire him because Ron Rivera might get fired, and then the Bears are second because Matt Eberflus might get fired. You got the Chargers, Raiders, and Titans in there as well. I just have so many thoughts about this, and really my main one is I'm actually not interested. And I know people will hit me up in the comments, the DMs, are you insane? He's won 6 Super Bowls. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest coach there is. Like, yes, I respect what Bill Belichick has done. But a couple of things, and I'm not even Mr. Brady made Belichick guy. Like, I'm not even saying that. But I do think it's noteworthy that without Tom Brady, he's a below 500 coach. And I think more relevant is recently, right? Like, since Tom Brady has left, Bill Belichick and the Patriots have made the playoffs once as a wild card team and have otherwise at times looked inept. Now, I expect Matt Eberflus to be gone. I do. But Bill Belichick is 71 years old, and bottom line, I don't trust him to figure out offense. Like, I don't trust him to hire a good coordinator. He has not been able to do that the last couple of years, and Mac Jones has fallen off a cliff partially because of it. Now, if Bill Belichick wants to only run a defense and be a defensive coordinator, I think he can still do that. I think he can still evaluate defensive talent, but Bill Belichick is not saving the Bears. I hate to break it to you. Like, I'm not saying I would take Flus over him. Like, if it's Flus or Belichick, I'm obviously taking Belichick. I still think Belichick is a decent coach. But, like, even if he works out fairly well here, like, how long is he here? 4 or 5 years tops? He'll be 72 next year. Like, you don't want Bill Belichick. I know that sounds crazy, Bears fans. You don't want Bill Belichick. I don't want Bill Belichick. I'll let you guys decide. Would you hire him or would you pass on him? I'm not hiring Bill Belichick. That's not the answer, man. He is not the answer to the Bears' problems. And believe me, there's a lot of them. H for hire, P for pass. Pin comment on today's show. Would you hire Bill Belichick? All right, let's get to your questions here. From Turtle, hashtag Bears or Super Chat. Thoughts on a blockbuster trade for Brian Burns? We talked about this recently on the show. I'm not giving up either of my first-round picks for him. So if that's what it's going to take, I'm not doing it. I just think you need to enter this offseason with that flexibility. But if there's some kind of package where you can trade, 2 seconds, one this year, maybe you give Carolina their 2025 second back, I could get open to that because you could pay him and you have your young pass rusher for the future. But I'm not trading one of my 2 first-rounders right now. Brendan Henderson, what's the probability that Caleb Williams pulls an Eli Manning on the Bears? I actually don't think very high. The pros of being a quarterback in Chicago. 1, you're going to get endorsement deals. Justin Fields is very much an unknown still. Reebok hired him to be the face of their football department as they kind of relaunched. Think about that. That's pretty impressive. Fields is all over commercials, especially in the Chicago area. Very marketable guy. And if you're Caleb Williams, who's a pretty cocky guy, by the way, the appeal of having a chance to save the Bears, if you will, I would think is very appealing. I don't buy the idea that has been, kind of loosely mentioned by his dad, depending on the team, we might just come back to USC. I'll call your bluff. I don't think he's going to do it. So I think there's more reasons than not to want to be the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Let's talk about today's sponsor. That is Factor, America's ready-to-eat meal kit, as they will deliver delicious and healthy meals straight to your store that you can pick from their 30-plus chef options, which a ton of them are delicious, as I have been running through their different meals here. If you're too busy to cook this fall, well, that's where Factor comes into play. Maybe you're like me, you got a 6-month-old at home, and sometimes it's hard to find the time to go shopping, spend a lot of hours in the kitchen, and cook something up. Well, Factor meals, they prepare the meals for you, and they deliver them to your doorstep, and then it just takes like a couple minutes to finish the preparation, and you can eat and enjoy. They've got calorie-conscious options. They have gourmet plus options if you want to really go upscale with those different lunch and dinner options. Also, they have lunch on the go. Maybe you travel for work, you don't have access to a microwave. You can get wholesome meals like grain bowls, salad toppers. They even have some smoothies as well. Go check out Factor Meals. You are not going to be disappointed. FactorMeals.com/BearsChat50. Use our code BearsChat50 to get 50% off at checkout. It is code BearsChat50 at FactorMeals.com/BearsChat50. Effortless, easy, delicious meals delivered straight to your doorstep. Get started today. Link and promo code in the description and comments of this video. From our guy, F. Marsh, could the Bears sign Kirk Cousins next offseason? Like Bill Belichick, I don't think Kirk Cousins is saving the Bears either. Now, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He is. Now, I think there's a clear ceiling there and how far you can go with Kirk Cousins. Now, you look at his next team odds here. The Bears come in 6th best odds at plus 800 behind the Patriots, Commanders, Titans, Steelers, and the Arizona Cardinals. But Kirk Cousins, he's going to be 35, I think, next year. He's put up great numbers this year for Minnesota. Like, they should be better than their 2-4 record. There's no doubt about it. He's at or near the top of the league in most categories. High completion percentage, yards, touchdowns, passer rating. He's good, man. He's a good player. But is Kirk Cousins coming in here with this roster currently constructed and winning the division? I don't think so. Like, I'm not interested. Like, I'd rather keep Fields and keep trying to develop him. I'd rather draft a quarterback. Like, Kirk Cousins, I think his ceiling with a not perfect roster, like AKA not a San Francisco or Philadelphia, for example, is probably the divisional round. I don't think you're getting further than that. And look, that sounds great right now, right? Because the Bears have not, been in the playoffs much in recent years, and they certainly haven't been winning playoff games, but he's won one playoff game in his career, and the Vikings have had better rosters than the Bears. So I'm not interested. I'll be very curious to see where he goes, because I do think he's going to leave Minnesota probably, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. How would you feel about having Kirk Cousins next year? G for good, B for bad? Now, if it's like a one-year deal, like if you're stuck in between in some scenario, like maybe, but like I don't see that scenario existing, like because you could just keep Justin Fields, who's still under contract. So G for good, B for bad. Let me know what you guys think. No Palencia. Honestly, fellas, once this organization bulks up the O-line, then I'm convinced they're going in the right direction. Games are won in the trenches. That's the thing, too. Like, you put Kirk behind this O-line right now, I think you're going to be in trouble. Yeah, you got to get better in the trenches. Offensive line, defensive line, both units got to improve. I think the O-line, when healthy this year, is decent-ish on paper, but there's still a player or two to go, especially center. I mean, center's just an embarrassment. I mean, they can't even snap the goddamn football. Like, it's ridiculous, but you got to beef up the trenches. There's no doubt. Brendan, hot take, 2025, draft Drew Aller instead of Caleb Williams in 2024. Yeah, there's a lot of hype around Drew Aller, and look, you could throw Shedeur Sanders in there as well. Here's the thing, though, Brendan. I think, are you banking on having another top 3 to 5 pick in 2025? That's something to consider as well, because, look, if you go the route where you trade the number 1 pick, get a bunch of pieces, like there's really no reason that the Bears wouldn't at least be somewhat competitive next year, even if Fields is up and down. Like, that should have been the case this year, but you've had a ton of injuries, and you've lost some close games. And look, in certain areas, you just aren't there yet. But I think another offseason goes by. If you use the number 1 or number 2 pick, trade it for other assets, sign some players, then you'll probably be competitive-ish. And then if Fields isn't the guy, you're probably not picking high enough to get a quarterback. So that's the dilemma I think Ryan Poles is going to face this offseason. Hit that subscribe button when Bears news drops. We're going to have you covered here on this show, so don't miss out. Turn on the notifications. Trade deadline just around the corner. We'll have you covered for all those moves as well. Chicago Bears Now, your home for Bears content on YouTube. Donovan Walker, hey man, just wondering if you saw the video of Caleb. Suggest you go watch a lot of red flags. If you're talking about the clip about the Notre Dame fan that ran on him, look, he's incredibly cocky. He just is. I do think it's too much sometimes. He's not a perfect prospect. I do think he's arrogant, but I also think he's good. Do I know if he's going to work out? I don't know. I'm just putting myself in Ryan Poles' headspace. If he gets the number 1 pick, I think he's going to draft Caleb Williams. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know. Time will tell. Carlos Ayala, if you re-sign Darnell Mooney, is Marvin Harrison your wide receiver 2 or 3? If Mooney becomes 3, would he be worth re-signing? Depends on price. And to be clear, Mooney would become your 3 behind DJ Moore and Marvin Harrison. I mean, quite frankly, Harrison could unseat DJ Moore in a couple years potentially. That's how good of a prospect he is. Now, I do not think that would be the case as a rookie. DJ Moore has been terrific this year. But think about how good Mooney is like a pure 3. Like, he's just working the slot, like some occasional double moves downfield. Like, if you could get him at 10 to 12 mil or less per year, like 2 or 3 year deal, and then by the time that contract's up, you're paying Marvin Harrison, I'd be all in for that. Mike Nintendo Master, who would you choose to be the next head coach? Ben Johnson, Jim Harbaugh, Dan Quinn? I would probably, at this exact moment, I would probably go Harbaugh 1, Johnson 2, Quinn 3. Now, Johnson, I think, in a lot of ways is more intriguing than Harbaugh. But how many awesome coordinators have we seen not be good as head coaches? Now, you have to hire those guys because proven head coaches aren't there all the time. That's the intrigue with Harbaugh, though. He is a proven head coach. He's 44-19 in the NFL. And it's not like, look, Colin Kaepernick had some nice years. It's not like he ever had a superstar quarterback, though. He had Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick with the Niners and almost won a Super Bowl. Pretty damn impressive, man. If you get him like a real top 10 caliber quarterback, you know he's going to bring in a good staff. Like, that's a question, too, with like a guy like Ben Johnson. Who's he bringing in for his staff? I don't know. Maybe he's bringing an awesome staff. I have no idea. But he's never been a head coach before. That's some appeal with Dan Quinn, too, is like he has been a head coach. He is well-connected. I just would rather go offensive-minded, but I'm not opposed to Quinn either. He'd be a fallback option for me. Ron Pandy, do you think the Bears have a chance with Garoppolo out this week, even with Bajan? I think they have a chance because I don't think the Raiders are that good of a football team. I know they're 3-3 and they're playing better. I would lean Vegas, though, because the Bears' O-line is really banged up, and Max Crosby is unbelievable. Like, he might win this game by himself if Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones don't play, which it's looking like that's a possibility. So, a chance, yeah, great chance. Probably not. It's probably going to be low scoring if we're being honest. All right, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at HGramNFL. If we didn't get to your questions, you can hit me up over there on social media, at HGramNFL. We'll see you over there with more of your questions. I mean, Seeps, you're our Vikings guy. Like, I know you like Kirk, but, like, I just don't think, like, you put him in Chicago right now. Like, A, I don't think he's playing as good as he is in Minnesota.
No.
And B, like, I just think he's too old to, like, by the time the rest of that roster is up to par, which in a couple of years, like, he's like 36, 37 at that point.
Yeah, like, I feel like Kirk's best chance, if he would go to a spot to win, it would have to be like Stafford going to the Rams.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And I think in that type of situation, he could be more than a divisional type of
100%.
quarterback. Like, you put Kirk Cousins with, like, I'm not going to use the San Fran example because that pipe dream is dead. But, like, I don't know. If you, like, Tennessee 2 years ago.
That would be a hell of a football.
Right? Like, when Tannehill went to the AFC title game once or twice or whatever it was and was the number one seed one year, like, Cousins is way better than Tannehill.
Way better. Yeah.
Run the rock with Derrick Henry, play action with Cousins, and have a top 5 defense. Like, that type of environment. Hell, if Aaron Rodgers wasn't with the Jets, like Kirk Cousins for the next couple of years with the Jets, they'd win 11, 12 games a year and be right in the hunt.
It's just the only thing with Kirk, he'll always leave you just asking for a little more. Like, I mean, we know.
Well, that's why you got to get him. Like, if you're going to go deep with him, the defense has to be elite, and you got to be able to run the football.
Yep. Because if it's on time, on script, he's probably one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Once he gets to backyard football, he's just not.
When he's kept clean in the pocket, he can do it all. But when he's under pressure and you have to come back from behind in a second half, that's when things get a little bit dicey. But yeah, I just don't think the Bears have a good enough roster right now for Cousins to make sense.
No, and the timelines just don't really match up too well.
Like, to me, you're either keeping Fields or you're drafting the quarterback.
Yeah.
So, all right, speaking of Fields, we're going to discuss him, an interesting trade idea that has been surfacing in recent days. Let's dive into that here on Chicago Bears Now. Is Justin Fields going to get traded before the NFL trade deadline? My name is Harrison Graham. The reality is probably not, but Jeff Howe of The Athletic proposed a few trade ideas, and there was an interesting one between the Bears and Falcons, which would send Fields to Atlanta. Now, let's get a couple of things straight. Number one, midseason quarterback trades are very rare, especially now that Justin Fields is dealing with an injury, and we don't really know the complete extent of that as we're filming this video. The NFL trade deadline is just days away, so I don't know how you even navigate that of this possibility even falling into play. So let's just mention that right off the bat. But let's get to the trade idea in just a second from The Athletic, because I do think it's an interesting one, as they proposed sending Justin Fields back to Atlanta, which, by the way, was where he grew up. He committed to Georgia, transferred to Ohio State. We all know the story. But here was the idea from The Athletic. Bears get a second-round pick this year, in this upcoming draft, I should say, a 2025 conditional third-round pick, and then Taylor Heinicke just to help fill out the QB room. I don't really care if he's in the trade or not, to be frank. I don't think that changes it one way or the other. View it second and a third for Justin Fields. Now, remember, this is very unlikely. Midseason trades don't happen, especially for starting caliber quarterbacks, and Justin Fields has a hand injury right now, so I'm not sure if it would happen. The reason I wouldn't completely dismiss it, at least from Atlanta's side of things, is I don't think it would be a play for them just for this year. I think it would be for 2024 as well to evaluate him and beyond potentially. And look, I think Justin Fields has done some good things this year. 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 picks. He had that 2-game stretch where he threw 8 touchdown passes. It's been up and down, but I think we have seen progress. The problem is it's been very hit and miss, right? Like the first 3 weeks, it was a slow start. I kind of threw the Chiefs game out the window because that was the Allen Williams week. That whole thing was a mess. It was just bad. He was great against Denver and Washington, was not great against Minnesota. Then he got injured in that game. I also think the game plans in the games that he hasn't played well, not to just completely put it on coaching, have not been sound. I don't think they've been great. So it's definitely not all on Fields, but the reality is he's played 2 really good games out of 6 this year. The Bears are in a tricky spot because we have seen signs of growth this year. And remember what Ryan Poles said before this year. I just want him to improve. I think he's improved. But has he improved to the point where you're Ryan Poles and you're currently sitting with the top 2 picks in the draft that you're not going to draft a quarterback? I don't know the answer to that for sure, but if I had to guess, if the season ended today and he had the top 2 picks in the draft, he's probably drafting a quarterback number 1 overall. So do you consider a trade? Is that a possibility, whether it's now or in the offseason? Obviously, again, right now it's very tricky to figure out, but that is a fascinating discussion that Jeff Howe had and what we're reacting to. Will Justin Fields be the Bears' Week 1 starter next season? I'm curious what you guys think. Not what you want. What do you think is going to happen? Because I think the answer is probably no. That's not necessarily what I want, but I think it's probably no. Pin comment on today's show, yes or no, will Fields be the starter in Week 1 of next season? So Jeff Howe, here's what he had to say on the Bears' reasoning of why this trade could make sense. He says the Bears are tracking toward the number 1 pick of the draft, either with their own selection or from the Panthers with that pick. So they're in play for Caleb Williams or Drake May. With major changes likely on the horizon again, it might be best to maximize Fields' value. Again, the Bears currently hold the top 2 picks in the draft. Justin Fields will be entering year 4 next year. So the opportunity to reset the QB contract timeline and just for Ryan Poles to pick his own guy, I would have to think Ryan Poles would be appealed by that. I just do, because the other idea that's been out there is trade back from 1 or 2, get a bunch of capital, build out this roster, which I am intrigued with, to be honest. And then, if Fields still isn't the guy after next year, then draft a quarterback. Well, the only problem with that is if the Bears are bad again in year 3 of Ryan Poles, he may not get a year 4, so he may go an entire GM stint without picking his own quarterback. So is he going to risk that? That seems pretty unlikely if I just was a betting man. Now, am I intrigued by that? Of loading up on offense and defensive linemen with those picks by trading down, getting capital, getting players? Yeah, I am. But do I think it's the most likely scenario at this point in time? No, I don't. I think if you get the number 1 pick, you're probably drafting Caleb Williams. All right, today's show presented by Prize Picks. Lots more to discuss with this Fields trade idea and situation. But listen, Prize Picks, it's just fun, man. Daily fantasy sports. And what I like about Prize Picks is it's very easy. There's nothing tricky about it, unlike this Bears QB situation. The way it works is simple. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection. If you do a 2-player entry, you win 3 times your money. If you do a 6-player entry, you can win 25 times your money. This pick 3 I've got for this weekend is for 5 times your money, so 10 to win 50, 20 to win 100, etc. Najee Harris has been struggling. I took the less on rushing yards for him. I took more on DJ Moore receiving yards. I think he hits that threshold this week, even with Tyson Bagent. And then I think Tua and the Dolphins could struggle against Philadelphia, so I'm going less on the passing yards for him. Get started today. You don't have to play against pros. You don't have to play against sharks. It's just you against the projections. That's what I like most about Prize Picks. You don't have to worry about other players playing on the app. It's just you versus the stats. Get started today. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. That's PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS. That code CLNS gets you a deposit match up to $100. All right, you compare Caleb Williams and Drake May, who are the 2 big names who, are likely going to go number 1 and number 2 overall, barring a significant shift. And both are good prospects. I mean, people think Caleb Williams is generational. I know he struggled against Notre Dame, but he's mobile. He's got a rocket arm. He's great off platform. He's very cocky, almost a little too much for me, but if you can back it up, that's all good in my book. Drake May, 6'5", 220, the rocket arm. He's mobile as well. Both these guys are good prospects. And look, if the Bears have a top 2 pick, I would expect Ryan Poles, at least based on what we know right now, here on October 20th-ish, whenever you're watching this video, I think that he would draft one of these 2 guys. Now, if the Bears are picking 4th, I don't know if they would do that. But with Carolina struggling, with the Bears struggling, there's a damn good chance they're going to be in the top 2. And hell, they might have the top 2 picks. That's how it currently sits. So that's just what I think Ryan Poles would do. I'm not saying necessarily I would do it. I see both sides of it. I see the appeal of Caleb Williams. Like he's Hollywood. He's dynamite. He's he talks the talk, but typically he walks the walk as well. And he would be entering year 1 of a rookie contract, not year 4 like Justin Fields, where even if he does ball out, then you got to pay him $40-50 million per year, which you'd be cool with if you're sure about, but then the rest of that roster, which isn't up to par yet, it becomes harder to build a football team. So I understand if Poles wants to reset here, and if they do get a top 2 pick, I think he probably would. What do you think, or what would you do? Pick a quarterback for next year. Type JF if you just want to keep Justin Fields. Type CW if you want to go with Caleb Williams. If you want Drake May, type DM. I like all these guys, man. Listen, no one's a bigger Justin Fields fan than me. I want him to work in Chicago, but I think with this latest injury and the inconsistent play, it's just you feel like that clock is starting to run out. So let me know, JF, CW, or DM. Jeff Howe from the Falcons' reasoning of why to pull the trigger from their side of things is he says the Falcons were linked to Fields, who's from Kennesaw, Georgia, before the 2021 draft, and he seems like a pretty solid fit for Arthur Smith's offense. Desmond Ridder has been struggling. It might be a lot to ask Fields to step in for Ridder relatively soon, but he could get a jump on the offense and position himself to relieve Ridder if necessary. Assuming the thumb heals, the extra time in the system could better prepare Fields for 2024. And yeah, I think if you're Atlanta, you consider this because A, you're not going to be picking high enough to get Drake May or Caleb Williams, and B, you feel like you've got the pieces that if you plug in Justin Fields with Bijan Robinson, with Kyle Pitts, with Drake London, behind a pretty good offensive line, with a good defense in a bad division, that's pretty appealing, and he can grow with your football team under Arthur Smith, who's a pretty good offensive coach. So you look back at the trade, you understand the appeal from Atlanta's side. Like, Desmond Ridder is holding them back right now. Justin Fields may not be perfect, but that offense isn't that crazy different schematically than what the Bears do. It's just better. And their offensive line's better. Arthur Smith is a proven offensive mind, so you understand the appeal from them. Would you do this trade? Is a second and a third enough? That's right now, before the deadline. That's essentially the question you got to ask yourself. Type T for trade or P for pass. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I don't think I'm taking this deal right now, though. I think there's way too much to risk. Number one, if Fields is going to get back and healthy this year, which I do think he's going to play again, I still want to see him play as much as possible this year and get as much of an evaluation as I can. That's number one. And number two, if you trade him and don't get a top 2 pick, like what if you trade him and, Bagent plays just good enough and Carolina gets hot late in the year and you're picking like 4 and 7? Like, then what do you do? Has Bagent shown enough where he's the answer? I mean, I guess maybe. I don't want to, rule anything out for the kid. I'm eager to watch him play, but I think there's way too much risk to trade him right now. And especially now with the injury, I think that just throws a wrench into it as well. Sure, could the value go down? Like maybe that type of deal is available now in the offseason. It's only a second or a third without an extra pick. Maybe. I'm willing to take that risk, though. Now, if a first is on the table, it might be a different discussion. And I love Justin, but that might be a different discussion. But I'm not taking it right now, man. There's too much unknown 6 weeks into the season to make that move. Hit that subscribe button if you want more trade buzz. The NFL trade deadline is just over a week away. We are going to cover all of it and how all the latest rumors and news impact the Bears. So don't miss out on that. Help us grow this channel. We would greatly appreciate it. All right. Pick a quarterback, Fields, Williams, or May. We're about to sign off here. I'll tell you what. I'm going to throw we got to clear out of the studio in the next couple minutes, but I'm going to throw 1 minute on. We're literally $5 away for $100 in Super Chats. If we get there, I'll knock out a beer bong for the road. $5 Super Chat. We'll rip a beer bong for the road. Then we'll clear out. Thursday Night Football boys got to get set up in here. So 1 minute on the clock. Ron says Caleb Williams. Chris says Justin Fields. Immortal says put Velus Jones at quarterback. If I'm Fields, I want this trade, though. He might go back close to home. Ah, yes. Wasim, 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 Wasim. Wasim, Wasim. Wasim, 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 Wasim. You can always count on Wasim Khan to deliver. Wasim, you are a real one. We're going to knock this out, and then we're going to sign off here on Bears Now. Jugalocious, that drink was for you too, my friend. Appreciate it. Y'all got us over $100 on the day. We'll, of course, be live on Sunday, Bears-Raiders. Round of applause to Seeps for filling in today. It's always fun, Seeps. We don't we don't work together a ton, but it's always a good time.
Yeah, no, it was good. Shout out to all Bears fans showing me the Bears love, showing me the Chicago love. So appreciate you guys.
Do you got the link to your watch party?
I do. I could put that in the chat.
Yeah, before we get out of here, go check out Seeps in the Bulls watch party tonight. If you got nothing to do on a Thursday night, Seeps is going to go live for who do the Bulls got tonight?
Timberwolves tonight.
Bulls, T-Wolves, the Tom Thibodeau Bowl.
Yeah, former Tips team, yes.
There you go. There's the stream. I'll pin it in the chat here for you guys. Bulls watch party tonight. He's going to be doing a bunch of them this year, so go check those out. Seeps is killing it over there, and maybe I'll hop on for a watch party with Seeps at some point this year. Yeah. That'll be a good time. Samoan Mike says, if the past 2 years have told me anything, Chicago let Fields down. Fields didn't let Chicago. I completely agree with this, and I'm going to keep making this point. I'm not advocating to just move on from Fields, but I have to put my GM cap on and just think about what Ryan Poles would do and what probably is best for everyone. Like, I don't think the Bears have handled Fields properly. Again, the prior regime drafted him, and then they fired him. The new coaching staff has not been good. Like, they tore down the roster, and he got killed last year and had to run for his life, which he did pretty damn well, rushed for almost 1,200 yards. But I just, barring a significant shift, I just don't see a general manager in this league trading down from the number one pick 2 years in a row. Yeah. Like, it's just unheard of. So that's where we're at. Bear down. We got to get out of here. Shout out to Seeps. Go check him out on the Bulls Watch Party. Link is pinned in the chat. We'll see you next time.